And welcome viewers to the daily space weather. We're looking at the sun here at 171 angstroms. And we see a sunspot has formed. It's the cycle 25 variety, and please ignore that calibration maneuver you see there. That maneuver by the SDO is to calibrate it and make sure that it is aimed perfectly at the center of the solar disk. Let's zoom in on the sunspot. And we're looking at 48 hours of activity here because we couldn't get the custom movies to work today. So here's the sunspot. It's very low. It's at what we would call a high latitude, as it's very far off of the equator. Another characteristic of cycle 25. So that's a good thing, folks. We want to see higher solar activity, not lower solar activity, as low solar activity is bad for your health. Here is the umbra associated with that sunspot. Let me zoom this out a little bit, as this is an ultra high res view. And there you can see that umbra. The dark core, and there's actually at least 2 umbra there, probably more like 4 or 5, without getting into counting umbrae. We'll move on to the colorized magnetogram, and there you can see the polarity. Clearly a cycle 25 sunspot there, as the south pole polarity is leading. And this is south of the equator, which makes it next cycle. Moving on to the X-ray imager. We do see X-rays coming out of there. So the probability for some flaring has gone up a little bit now. And for those of you concerned about coronal mass ejections, we haven't seen any. I check stereo A every day. And if I see ejecta, we cover it on the channel. Anyway, there's the NASA GOES X-ray imager. And keep an eye on the X-ray flux, as again, the probability of an X-ray flare has gone up quite a bit now, as we finally see a sunspot. So cheers for that, local yellow dwarf. We thank you. And there's the X-ray flux. Don't be surprised at all to see some flaring going on. Be keeping an eye on that sunspot all day, seeing if it gets bigger, smaller, etc. Look at the real-time solar wind. Phi angle is down around 40 degrees. Solar wind density remains slightly elevated at 10.18 protons per cubic centimeter, and the solar wind speed currently at 420. Yeah, we said it. 420 kilometers per second. And let me take the opportunity to say Happy All Saints Day. Yes. Now, the day after Halloween in various Western Christian churches is known as All Saints Day. We've left links to the wiki article in the description if you want to go out and go souling. Now, I don't know if you're aware of what souling is, but souling is the practice still carried out in Portugal, I understand, where you go door to door and you sing, and you offer to sing for the souls of people's families and pets and so on, and then they give you a thing called a soul cake, otherwise known as a soul mass cake, and that's actually the origin of trick-or-treating. Now, All Saints Day was created by the Catholic Church in opposition to Halloween, which they considered a satanic pagan holiday, and tomorrow's All Souls Day, so that's the one for everybody. Today is the day to venerate saints. Now, did you watch our videos yesterday? Let's give you a tidbit, as we're going to have to wait until tomorrow to let the souls out of the pumpkins.
Meanwhile, in the Smash Tower. Yes, the souls are now in the jack-o'-lanterns. We have transferred the souls to the jack-o'-lanterns.
So we've transferred the souls to the jack-o'-lanterns, and let's talk about funding the channel. Are you aware that the NPC drones over at Google pay us absolutely nothing for this content? Throttle our content, shadow ban it, make it nearly impossible to find our channel via search, etc., as well as try to shake us down for money. Now, Google called us a few months ago, and they wanted $350 to, quote, fix our search listings. In other words, they wanted to shake us down in order to be shown on the Google search engine. Now, personally, I consider the verb Google to mean to obtain biased search results using the Google Junkware search engine. And if you're still using the Google Junkware search engine and thinking you're obtaining objective search results, let me just share a story with you. I stopped using Google in 2011 or 2012. I can't remember. I think 2011, actually. Let's just say 2012 and give Google the benefit of the doubt. Why did I stop using Google? Because I typed in the URL of a page, the whole URL, complete, http://www.domain.com. Guess how many pages deep I had to go to find that website? 12 pages deep, folks. I had to go 12 pages deep to find a URL that I typed in precisely into the Google Junkware search engine. Now, Eric Schmidt admitted to Business Insider as early as 2011 that shadow bans were a real thing, described what shadow bans were before the term shadow ban existed, and we'd prefer not to cover this, but since Google is messing up our ability to reach people and achieve our mission goals, we talk about it on the regs, because we can't stand the way Google is trying to ruin the internet. So please fund the panel and the channel on places like PayPal if you don't want to become a patron, or on the Hemp Lucid Spaced Out campaign, also linked below the video. Check that out if you're in the market for CBDs. Buy them via our affiliate link, if you would be so kind. But most of all, become a patron. Now, we've decided to keep the $1 tier. Check it out, patrons. We just posted a short little paragraph about what's going on with the channel. We've decided to keep the $1 tier. It's not because we were lying to you for the past 6 weeks. It's just because we didn't want to be formulaic and use a simple math equation to figure out if we should get rid of the tier. So we've decided to keep it. The content will be greatly limited compared to the gold member $9.99 a month tier. And so that's the update on Patreon. Please support the channel that way. And follow us on other social media, places like BitChute. Whenever you don't see a video come from us early in the morning about space weather on YouTube, chances are the content was throttled, deleted entirely, banned, set to private without our authorization or something like that. Let's go back to space weather data. By the way, the ACE data corroborates the Discover data, like most days. Let's move on to fire coverage. And the Kincaid fire now is 65% contained. And we're noticing power outages, massive power outages in the entire Northeast as we were hit by severe thunderstorms. 230,000 out of power in PA, almost 200,000 out in New York, 86,000 out in Virginia, and so on and so on. In California, 70,000. So significant power outages. The lights are still on here, and for that, we thank you. Moving on to the magnetosphere movies, it's looking pretty steady as she goes in the geospace. We're just going to play the pressure movie today. Here's 4 hours of data, courtesy University of Michigan geospace model. By the way, if anybody knows any connections in the world of voice acting, I am very interested in becoming the voice of a cartoon villain. Or perhaps a non-cartoon villain. And here's a geospace ground magnetic perturbations, of which we don't see very many. Delta B, that's changes in the Earth's B field, folks. And if you're wondering what the B field is, the B field is the field that goes through the magnet. And we'll let that play through together. 4 hours of data. Again, courtesy of University of Michigan geospace model V1.5. 10.7 centimeter radio flux is still at 70 last I checked, and we wouldn't be surprised if that went up, as again there is a sunspot. The magnetic environment is going to remain choppy here. Let me think. We're going to be back in the North Pole oriented portion of the current sheet, according to the way the magnetic environment is, according to me. Anyway, there's the magnetometer, and it's going to continue spiking as we are undecided as to which polarity current sheet we are in. And here's the gong data, the gong 2 data that is, which will corroborate what I've just said. we're going to end up back in the North Pole oriented portion of the current sheet, and that is because of that sunspot's effect on the sun's B field. We're going to look at it from a different view after we let this play. Here's the last frame. And so we're going to be back in the North Pole oriented portion of the current sheet, shown here in green. Here's another view. This is the line of sight field plot. The B field shown in blue here should show some variation as a result of that sunspot forming. And we do expect to see that pulled down a little bit. Surprised that it's already not showing up. Let me show you the last frame here. And there's the last frame. We are expecting this field to be peeled down, and the crossing of the sector barrier into the other polarity current sheet could happen at any time. Could have already happened. And that data is an hour and 30 minutes old. Keep in mind the magnetic environment can change with no warning. The KP is at 2. There's the graph. We were in geomagnetic unrest for a short period. KP dropped all the way down to 0. And now back up to 2. What we would call a comfortable KP index. There's the electron flux. Looking at a more moderate level here. Nothing to write home about there. Relativistic electrons have flared out a little bit. I mean, have chilled out a little bit also. There's the greater than 2 mega electron flux. And moving on to look at charging hazards, they are minimal. A little bit of charging hazards there over Western Africa. No charging hazards in the Tropic of Capricorn. Here's the ionosphere movie, looking at 6 hours of the ionosphere. And frankly, it's not looking anomalous really in any way, as geospace is fairly steady at the current juncture. Play the last image and move on. And there's the image from 7:30. Nothing to really write home about there. Pretty normal in the ionosphere. Now we're going to cover a lot of articles today. And look, the words metallic hydrogen have appeared. Shout out Sky Scholar, aka Dr. Robitaille. Got to get that guy on the show. Hopefully we can get him in a Skype chat. Anyway, some interesting new processed images of cloud tops on Jupiter. Those white areas that you see there, right up there, those areas are extremely high cloud tops. And this article from, what is it, Universe Today, is highlighting this. This one was edited by somebody. Let me find out who. It was Gerald Eichstädt. Eichstädt used an image from Juno's JunoCam to create the enhanced color image. And I'm not so sure about the rock and ice core. What do you think? But the liquid metallic hydrogen idea I like, as it explains why Jupiter is such a strong magnet. We've left links to this article as well as the other sites we don't visit every day. Actually, we've left pretty much links to everything below the video. So check that out after you become our next patron, perhaps. And we've also linked to the image processing gallery from NASA's site. This is, Mission Juno's portion of the NASA web ring. And there are some interesting images, to say the least. If you want to go check out Jupiter in great detail, check that out. Now let's talk about climate change. Oh yeah, we covered this story yesterday. It's going to be all over the Science Wire all day today. Ancient ice has revealed the CO2 cycle of Earth going back nearly 2 million years. Now they tainted part of their samples, and the oldest part, the part that was about 2.2 million years old, was allegedly tainted by CO2 from likely microbes underneath. Now, I'm not sure. I figured that one out. I don't really get that. But let me just read you a quote from the article. And by the way, it does refute itself repeatedly. Here we go. One of the most important results of this study is to show that carbon dioxide is linked to temperature in this earlier time period, even though their findings do not support that in any way. The authors found the lowest levels of carbon dioxide didn't show up for the first 40,000 years after the mid-Pleistocene transition occurred. Let that sink. Let's reflect on that. The Ice Age cycle used to be 40,000 years. Now it's 100,000 years. And they're not able to correlate CO2 with that. What a surprise. Is anybody surprised by this? Anyway, read the article from Science Alert. And please have a discerning eye, because if you don't understand the way the physics and geology come together in this. It's going to do nothing but muddy the waters. But if you do understand, this will be a great article. Tony Heller will be talking about this later today, mark my words. And shout out to Tony Heller, another guy we went on the show ASAP. Got to reach out to that dude. He is fantastic. Do the earthquake rundown. We're going 4 magnitude and up only. As the earthquake magnitude 7 drought continues, I still say Western South America is the spot where it's going to end. Please leave a comment if you have a different idea. I know people have been saying the Philippines. Speaking of which, here's a 4.8 in the Philippines coming in at 8:56 UT. The current time is 3:41 at smAsho Studios. Next, we see a 4.5 at the Philippines, followed by a 4.3 at South Africa. Shout out South African viewers. Please leave a comment, Carrie, if you're still gaming. And let's zoom in on that, as that's a weird spot. Don't think I've ever seen a quake there. Southeast of Lesotho, one of the weirdest countries in Africa. Anyway, there's the location of that quake. Moving back to the list. And let's get going here before we become old and gray. Next, we see a 5.1 at the Solomon Islands. That one coming in at 400 kilometers plus depth. Heads up there for a larger quake at the surface. If that happened at the surface, that would be a high level 6 due to its extreme depth. Next, we see a 5.0. This one in Iran. All right. 5.0 at the Fiji Islands. 4.9 at the Philippines. 5.2 at Tonga. This one coming in at 1918 UT. Next on the list is a 4.5 at Chile. This one at 2209 UT. We see a very shallow quake here at Hawaii, probably associated with magmatic activity. And let's take a quick look at that. And that one's not really under Kilauea. Looks like it's pretty close to a populated area. I have a feeling some folks might have felt that one, but it's not a big quake, so let's move on. And next on the list is a 4.7 at the Philippines. As I say, lots of curse words at my mouse. Here's a 4.3 at Argentina, as I bear down on buttons and click them 18 times to get one click. It's a 261.6 kilometer depth quake at a 4.3 magnitude. Heads up Western South America for a larger quake. I still say the 7 magnitude drought is going to end somewhere in Western South America. What say you, the viewer? If you're viewing from South America, please leave a comment and help our analytics. Next, we see a 4.5 at Papua New Guinea. This one coming in 30 minutes after midnight UT. Next is a 5.4 at Indonesia, followed by a 4.8 at Indonesia. Next, we see a 4.7 at Albania. That one coming in at 5:25 UT. And last on the list of 4 magnitude plus quakes is a 4.9 at the Philippines. This one coming in at 6:07 UT. Let's move on to the pressure maps, courtesy windy.com. By the way, windy.com's mobile app is fantastic, and I was using it to observe the Doppler radar imagery for the severe thunderstorm that we were hit with this morning. That woke me up at about 10 p.m., and I never went back to sleep. Anyway, there's the pressure maps. We'll let that advance about 1 day from when this video was shot. Move it into Saturday. There's Saturday. And there's 11 o'clock Zulu Saturday. 11 o'clock Zulu UTC, whatever you'd like to call it. And next, the volcano rundown, starting with Shiveluch on the Kamchatka Peninsula, exploding. Uptick there. 15,000 foot ash plume. Mount Aso, 6,000 foot plume there, as it steadily goes off day after day. Sakurajima, 7,000 foot plume there. Mount Dakono exploding, 6,000 foot plume there. Kerinci down in Sumatra, 14,000 foot ash plume there. Ravenador exploding, 14,000 foot ash plume there. Sabancaya exploding, 24,000 foot ash plume there. And Nevados de Chilean producing intermittent emissions. Please do not play bingo on the slopes of Nevados de Chilean. We need the views. And there's the solar system scenario. Let's advance it 1 week. There's where it'll be in 1 week, and check out theplanetstoday.com if you want to find this information for yourself. All kinds of great views, geocentric view, whatever you want. And let's refresh. It's 3:47. Do you know where your constellations are? Anyway, there's what's going on above my head as Cygnus is about to set for a couple hours, and then just rise again as it circles Polaris over and over for who knows how many years until it becomes the celestial North Pole and really freaks you out. Next time you hear thunder, check out lightningmaps.org, something I failed to do when I heard thunder. If I could go back and do it all over again, I would go to lightningmaps.org. Next, we'll look at the animation of the U.S. Doppler radar here on Weather Underground. And there you can see the date stamps. Let that play through a few cycles. Snow continues to fall, and it's only November 1st. Seems like it's going to be an interesting winter. And speaking of interesting winters, here's a GFS model, which is showing our first snow to come in on November 12th. Now, those of you who know me a little better than the ones who just watch these videos know that I was predicting snow to fall here in the Lehigh Valley, eastern Pennsylvania, before the month of November. I was wrong, and I admit when I'm incorrect, folks, although it doesn't happen very often. Next, we'll look at the water vapor map, and you can see the dry mass of air that has pushed that strong squall line system out into the Atlantic, and cold air is getting injected down there into southern New York. The flow is not going to hit the Lehigh Valley so much, but we're going to see big temperature striations across the state of Pennsylvania throughout the day. And let's zoom in on that zone off of North Carolina where I see some rapid cloud nucleation. And there's a view there. Probably a great day for Outer Banks surfers. Probably perfect surf literally right at this moment. Anyway, there's the convergence line. And this animation brought to you by the NASA GOES Interactive Weather Satellite and me at massive personal expense. Here are the jets of the eastern world. We see doubled up jet streams in the north, highly concentrated jet stream in the south. Look at this bend down here. Western Australia is going to be getting some hot air and probably publishing a whole bunch of stupid articles about how the globe is warming and it's because of CO2 or some other nonsensical gibberish BS like that from people that don't know the first thing about atmospheric physics. Let's look at the Western jets and get this video produced so we can get it on the web and probably make another one again this morning, folks, as we have not covered anywhere near the news stories we want to cover. And check out the meridional jet stream flow. Look at those bends in the jet stream. If you think CO2 is causing those bends in the jet stream, folks, I recommend a team of psychiatrists. To quote Jerry Seinfeld, you don't need 1 hour a week for $80. No, you need a team. You need a team. What? Talking about science, thinking about physics, trying to understand the relationship between man-made carbon emissions and the climate. There isn't any relation. And thanks Smash Team for viewing the videos. And especially thanks patrons for being executive producers. Well, really associate producers. And there is a credit crawl coming, folks. Don't worry. It's all, everything is still going according to plan. Please stay tuned for a bonus, a feature. And we've decided to show an extreme zoom here in 304 angstroms. This is pretty much the entire lifespan of that sunspot. I didn't get the number of it yet, but anyway, there's a 304 angstroms view. This is 48 hours of solar activity. We're going to go up and look at the north. There's the north. Still see some filaments all around the limbs. We are out. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody. Remember, stare at the sun. Don't drink. If you drink, stare at the sun anyway. Use the proper instruments like the SDO and don't drive. And since it'll never be now again, may the solar wind be at your back. And the atherosclerosis absent. From your veins.